Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 572, I'll See You, 1. It all still felt like a blur. That day, the day she left, it still felt like a blur. Rose really forgot about everything that came after that. Life just seemed to move faster and faster, leaving her behind. That day, she lost everything. Her sisters, her parents, and her niece. By the time stopped for her once again, a decade had passed. In that decade, she rotted in a cell, wasting her days mindlessly staring at the passing of time. That was until she appeared again. No, Rose. She was the spitting image of her. From her eyes to her hair. But she too was flawed. It was just that, unlike her, she showed her flaws. She wasn't afraid of flaunting them. Perhaps it was a good thing Kira learned to hate her. That way, she wouldn't have to go as far as hating herself like her mother did. This way, she'd learned to move on and finally move forward. Ugh! Rose suddenly flinched. The pain from the severed arm started to grow more prominent. She had lost a lot of blood. Her vision was blurry and she was struggling to keep her breath in check. Crackle. The flames around them crackled, and in the distance Rose could feel that something was happening. More reinforcements? Rose bitterly smiled. This looks like the end for me. She had lost a lot of blood. Even if the reinforcements came fast enough to stop her blood loss, she would still be facing the death penalty. The crime of escaping prison was as such. And not only that, but she knew that the higher-ups within that place wanted her dead. This was the end for her, and Rose knew it. Lifting her head quietly, she stared at the distant flames. Crackle. They crackled fiercely in the surroundings. They were bright. Very bright. But even the fiercest of fires eventually died down. That was how Rose felt about herself. A dying flame. Or at least, that was what she believed. Just as she lay down, gazing up at the sky, a shadow fell over her. Looking up, she saw a pair of hazel eyes staring down at her. Rose frowned, but just as she was about to speak, she saw Julian retrieve a small device from his pocket. I found this a while back. It was a small rectangular cube. It was hidden quite well, but I managed to find it. I take it that this is yours? The sight of the cube left her completely speechless. She, of course, knew exactly what the cube was. It was the very device she had been searching for from the beginning, the one thing that could have granted her escape and made her life easier. He found it. Rose secretly swallowed her saliva. Although the sight of the cube made her a little excited, she recalled her current position and her heart settled. But that was until he tossed it to her. Here. Dropping onto her chest, Rose blinked her eyes a couple of times, unsure of how to react to Julian's unexpected actions. Was he really? I don't really know what's going on between you and them, but given that they've been chasing you, going back probably isn't a good idea. You should take some time to heal and stay hidden. Perhaps once enough time passes, things will settle. Maybe they'll forgive you. Rose swallowed quietly. Though he was speaking ambiguously, Rose seemed to understand exactly what he was trying to say. Go and hide. I'll try to settle things and have you return. In other words, he wanted her to join his side. Rose opened her mouth, but as she did, she suddenly felt a pair of crimson eyes settle on her. Her mouth opened but soon closed as she grabbed the cube. All right. Without sparing a glance in Kira's direction, Rose forced herself up and staggered away from the spot. Every part of her ached with every movement, but she pushed forward regardless. This wasn't the best place for her to use the cube. Just as she staggered toward a nearby tree, a faint voice called out from behind her. Aunt! Rose stopped for a brief moment, her back turned against the voice. Crackle. Beyond the fierce crackling of the fire, an eerie silence settled over the space as Rose waited quietly for Kira to speak. She bit her lips as she waited. For some reason, she was a little nervous. Was she going to get berated for running away again? For running away from the Empire and responsibilities? Whatever the case was, Rose was ready to take it. Because she was indeed running away. I'll see you. But the words that she expected to come out of her niece never came out. Instead, she received a simple, I'll see you. Rose's back trembled faintly. But soon a smile marred her features. Without looking back, she quietly left the premises. Her cold heart felt a little warmer. It's strangely comforting how such simple words can turn me like this. Is it because I've always wished you'd say them to me? That way, I would know you wouldn't disappear. How bitter. Rose finally stopped, her breathing rougher than before. She was almost completely spent. Leaning down against one of the trees, she slowly slid back down. I think this is far enough. She looked at the cube in her hand and channeled the little mana she had in it. A faint glow manifested over it shortly after, and Rose's face winced in pain. Even so, she held on. She was close. Leaving so soon? Amidst the pain, a faint voice reached her ears. When she raised her head, a familiar figure stood before her. She smiled at her. I'm saddened by the fact that you're leaving so soon. I would have loved to see my daughter for a little longer. Instead of getting angry or ignoring her like she usually did, Rose smiled. Same. She's grown up quite well. Well, I guess. Evangeline placed her hand over her cheek and sighed. She didn't really look satisfied. What? Don't tell me you were actually jealous by the fact that she turned out to be like me? No, not jealous. At least look at me when you say you're not jealous. Evangeline shrugged and Rose laughed. Stupid bitch, I can totally see right through you. She was definitely jealous. Rose had already thought this before, but it really was a funny thought. But her smile didn't linger for much longer as she shifted her attention back to the cube once more. Now that place is no longer safe, I'm kind of lost. What should I do now? What should you do? Isn't it obvious? What? Live for yourself. Rose blinked her eyes and looked at her sister. Live for myself? What sort of nonsense are you talking about? It's not nonsense. What How much time have you wasted living in my own shadow? From the time you wasted in a jail cell to the time you wasted in the organization you never wanted to be a part of to begin with. Never want to be in it? What made you? You knew all along that they were searching for the mirror. They sought you out because they believed you resented me, that you resented the entire family for neglecting you. You joined to protect me. Us. Rose bit her lip. You did it. You managed to protect us. But now your job is over. It's time to move on as well. It's time you learn to love yourself. That's rich coming from you. Hee hee. What are you laughing like an idiot for? Just because? Well, stop it. I don't like it. Hey now, I'm still the older sister here. Why do you have to speak to me like that? Because you're a bitch. You really are a bad influence on Key. If you knew, then you shouldn't have died. It's too late for regrets now. You're right, it's too late for regrets. Rose's lips trembled and her eyes started to sting as she lowered her head. But even if it's too late to regret, if you could turn back time, would you still do it? Probably. I see. Rose nodded her head in understanding. You must have been struggling a lot, huh? I was a fool for not seeing it, but did you really have to give up on yourself like that? Did you? Drip. Drip. Tears suddenly started to stream down Rose's face. When you gave up, it felt like you gave up on me too, on your daughter, on everyone who ever loved you. Like we weren't enough to make you stay. Rose clenched her shirt. And that shit hurt. It hurt so fucking much. Her vision was now blurred with tears as she bit her lips so hard they started to bleed. I hate you. More than you can ever imagine. You ruined my life. You're everything that I don't ever want to be. Fuck, shit. If I ever have to give up on myself, I still won't do it knowing that I Cutting Rose short, she suddenly felt something warm. As she lifted her head, she saw her sister's figure wrapped around her in a tight embrace. A shuddering breath escaped her, and for a moment she felt completely breathless. I know. Her sister's gentle voice whispered in her ear. And I'm happy that you think that way. Why? You're very strong. A lot stronger than I ever was. No, It's okay, I know that I was weak. If I didn't know, I wouldn't have left. But you know. I was just tired. Really tired. I just wanted to rest. I know. As always, you understand me the best. Evangeline smiled. That's why I've always liked hanging out with you. In the brief moments we did stay together, I felt like I could breathe again. Not only that, but you also took care of protecting Key for me. Evangeline suddenly leaned back to get a better look at Rose. Her half-hearted smile turned into a genuine and warm smile. Thank you. Thank you for taking on such a heavy burden for me. Staring at her warm smile, Rose didn't know how to reply or react. All she could do was stare. She stared at her sister wide-eyed as a brilliant white glow suddenly erupted from the cube in her hand, spreading outward until it slowly began to consume her entirely. The last words she heard were a simple, "See you," before everything turned white and her body was transported away. When Rose finally woke, she found herself lying on something soft. Looking up, Rose hastily looked around for any trace of her sister, but she was no longer there. She was gone. The realization hit her rather quickly. Gone. She's gone. Her sister. Rose's chest trembled, but as it did, she felt something touch the tip of her nose. Chirp chirp. It was a small brown bird. It was also then that she finally took notice of her surroundings as she found herself lying on a soft bed of grass surrounded by blooming flowers and towering trees. The scenery was beautiful. So much so that Rose found herself unconsciously opening her mouth. But soon, she calmed down as she was suddenly reminded of something. Spring. She mumbled, her head rolling back onto the grass. It's not so bad. Chapter 573, I'll see you too. Russell. It didn't take long for the reinforcements to come. You're here. What's going on? But by the time they had arrived, everything was already over. It couldn't be helped. The entire sequence of events didn't take more than several minutes in total. While it felt like several hours had passed, it had all been incredibly quick. From the defeat of the members of the Inverted Sky to Kira's aunt's escape, it had all taken just a few minutes. It also wasn't hard to look for the teleportation device. All I had to do was spread out my threads through every inch of the place in order to find it. You're finally here. I turned my head to see a pair of familiar gray eyes emerge from one of the bushes. He looked somewhat surprised to see me doing fine. Why do you look disappointed? I'm not. You are. You're right. My lip twitched. He wasn't even trying to hide it. I was just about to open my mouth and say something when something blurred past me, heading straight for Kira. I tried to react, but I wasn't fast enough. Why? By the time I reacted, it was already too late as the silhouette pounced on Kira, who opened her eyes wide. It was also then that the silhouette became clear and I stopped dead in my tracks. "You're fine, aren't you?" A voice lingered in the air. It was calm and also warm. However, looking at his large back from where I stood, I could see that it was trembling. "I understand that you resent me for what happened with your mother, and I understand that. But I still don't wish for anything bad to happen to you. Whatever happened in the past, you are still my daughter. Please take care of yourself if you won't allow me to." Kira's mouth opened as she tried to say something, but soon stopped as she brought her hands around her father's. "Okay." That was all she said, but at the same time her hands squeezed tightly around her father. "I'll do it. That's gooey. I'll let you take care of me." "Ha! It's your job after all." The next day. "So you're saying that Rose was able to defeat the 4 guardians by herself?" Naturally, after the events of the previous day, delegates from the Megrail family were sent to the estate to interrogate us. With the severity of the incident and the loss of an entire squad, the situation quickly escalated. I, alongside Kira and a few others, was put into questioning. Yes, it was just here. I saw her defeat all 4 of them with my own eyes. Right now, I was lying through my teeth. The deaths of the squad members were largely the result of what the 3 of us had accomplished together. And no one would believe that Kira and I had played a role in defeating such powerful opponents. In fact, it was still unbelievable. "I don't know if you found it, but there should be an arm lying around somewhere. That belongs to Rose. She took quite a few injuries during the fight." "Yes, we managed to find it." Interrogating me was a lanky man with sharp eyes and brows. With shoulder-length black hair, he appeared to be extremely serious as he analyzed the information in front of him. As he looked through them, I overheard him mumble. "The fact that they're all burnt to a crisp aligns with her abilities. There's no sign of anything else at play. Is this really the truth? But if so, does that mean she's even stronger than previously reported?" I just patiently waited in my seat while he continued mumbling to himself. I was confident that they wouldn't be able to find anything even if they tried their hardest. The bodies of the people who had been killed had all been burned to a crisp, therefore making it impossible for them to notice any trace of emotive magic in their bodies, even if they wanted to. There was no way they'd be able to link it to me. Of course, I also knew that things were far from over. I still had to answer to those from the inverted sky. Nonetheless, I was already prepared. "I see. Well, everything aligns with what we've observed. It seems we'll need to reevaluate the individual known as Rose." As if satisfied with what he'd found, the man stood up and closed the evidence book in front of me. He extended his hand in my direction. "Thank you very much for your cooperation, and I'm sorry for bothering you. As you know, this is quite a big matter, so we were left with no choice but to interrogate you." "It's fine," I coolly replied, similarly standing up and shaking his hand. Then, without casting another glance in his direction, I turned around and left the room. Clank. Waiting outside of the room were a few familiar faces. "Were you guys interrogated as well?" "No. We weren't directly involved, so there was no need for us to be interrogated." "Oh." Answering was Aoife, who looked troubled. Was she worried about the 4 guards who had been killed? I briefly considered a way to comfort her but ultimately decided against it. The less she knew, the better. "But there's something else that's bothering me." Aoife's brows furrowed extremely tightly. So much so that I started growing concerned. Did she find something? If so, then things were going to be quite troublesome. Maybe I usually bring my camera with me, but in the rare time that I didn't, I missed the chance to capture Kira crying. "Do you guys think there's a way to turn back time? Just a little bit? Just so that I can remind my past self to bring the camera?" Right then, whatever words were about to come out of my mouth stopped. I soon felt my face change as I stepped back. "What? Why are you looking at me like that? It's as if you're looking at something disgusting." I didn't answer and just moved away. What a sick princess. Capturing a photo of Kira in her weakest moment. What utterly disgusting deguiner ow. "Hey, why are you repeatedly looking at your forearm? Is there something wrong with your forearm?" "Eh?" I pulled my hand behind me. "I injured it. Even now, it still hurts." I was only looking because it hurt. Not because of Aoife's words. It wasn't as if I could actually do what Aoife said. Me going back in time to interact with my past self? Never. Damn it, why did I also forget about the camera? At the same time elsewhere. Within the Naz and Sifa Empire, for powerful duchies held dominion. Each controlled vast territories, their influence second only to the prestigious Megrail estate. Each territory bordered one another, often leading to several small skirmishes between the territories. Thankfully, the clashes were minor, occurring only occasionally, often due to small disagreements. None of these conflicts ever escalated into anything significant, nor did any of the duchies have any real intention of engaging in a large-scale war. Not only because the Megrail family would immediately step in, but also because of a certain duchy. The Rosenberg Duchy. With Orson Rosenberg at the helm, leading central, and in no small part due to his only daughter, Delilah V. Rosenberg. With the 2 at the helm of the Rosenberg household, none of the other duchies entertained the thought of starting any conflict. In fact, one might even argue that the 3 other duchies were submissive to the Rosenberg household. Currently within the main manor of the Rosenberg household, a small dinner was taking place. "I'm very happy that you finally made some time with me, Delilah." A thin smile crossed Orson Rosenberg's face as he sliced the steak before him. This was one of the rare occasions he could enjoy dinner with his daughter. How long had it been? Yes. As opposed to him, Delilah didn't look particularly excited. Staring at the steak in front of her, she sliced it before placing it in her mouth and chewing it. So? How is it? It comes from an extremely rare breed of cows that I managed to find just for this occasion. The marbling not only is amazing and rich, but the taste is just on point. Oh, it's good. Delilah pretended to agree. In fact, she didn't care. It wasn't chocolate, so... I'm glad you like it. Orson appeared genuinely satisfied by her word and sliced another piece. Very good. Oh, right? How is the academy? You haven't been telling me much. It's good. The TS all? Delilah thought for a moment before cocking her head. A bit boring now. Boring? Orson blinked his eyes. Why? Is there a lot of work? Oh, right. Considering what had recently happened, then it does make sense. Not really. Delilah dismissed her father's words. The workload was not that much more. The reason why she was bored was something else. Then, sensing something, Orson frowned. Don't tell me it's because you aren't eating chocolate. Delilah, what is it with you and chocolate? We've talked about this before. No, not really. Delilah once again dismissed her father. Not chocolate. His face showed genuine signs of shock. Not chocolate? Was this really his daughter? Orson suddenly started to have a weird feeling as he stopped slicing his steak. This, boredom, is the reason you're bored because you're by yourself? Delilah blinked for a moment before nodding. Yes. Orson pursed his lips as he set his utensils on the table. Oh, I see. I think I get what's going on. You're bored because you're missing someone. Missing. Delilah's large obsidian eyes blinked for a moment before she nodded again. Yes, you can say so. Wow, so you've made a friend? Orson looked at his daughter with a happy smile. Outside of pleasant surprise, he was also somewhat shocked. Of all people, someone actually was able to be friends with his antisocial daughter? This? Whoever she is, she must be a saint. I see. So you're bored because your friend isn't here. Haha. Orson let out a small chuckle. That's rare of you. If that's the case, then you must like them quite a bit. Delilah didn't answer immediately and blinked her eyes for a brief moment. Like them quite a bit? She thought about her father's words for a brief moment before answering. Yes, probably. Chapter 574, 6 months, 1. Puff. Smoke lingered in the air as Kira sat alone, gazing at the forest stretching beyond her estate. In the distance, she could see the damage caused by the fire started by her aunt, with many of the trees burnt beyond recognition. She sat there in silence while enjoying the cigarette in her grasp. Or at least, she tried. This tastes like shit. Pulling the cigarette away from her mouth, Kira frowned. Since when did cigarettes taste this bad? Nah, maybe it's just me. She took another drag, but... Ugh. It still tasted like shit. What the... Kira took a look at the cigarette in her hand for a good moment before eventually clicking her tongue and tossing it away. Ah, whatever. Perhaps it was just a low-quality cigarette. It could also be that it was expired, but could cigarettes expire? No, it would make no sense considering that she had recently bought them. Swindled? Was she swindled? I'll fucking kill it. Are you sure you should be littering? It was then that Kira heard the sound of a familiar voice as they sat next to her. She frowned and looked to her right. Are you just going to sit here without asking? May I sit? No. I'll still sit. Tisk. Clicking her tongue, Kira reached for her cigarette box, her fingers brushing against another one before she hesitated. She stared at the cigarettes for a moment, then closed her eyes and put them away. Not going to take them? They've expired. Is that so? If I say they are, they are. Kira made a face and leaned back on the bench. She tried to focus on the view before her, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to take in the scenery. In actuality, there was something that had been gnawing at her for quite a while. It was regarding the mirror. She hadn't actually been fully honest with Julian. In fact, she wasn't actually completely clueless about where it was. In fact, she knew exactly where it was. It was just that. I'm not even sure if it's the real thing. Whatever the piece of junk hiding in her dorm was, it was no artifact, she was sure of that much. Not only that, but it was also broken. That was why she was so hesitant about bringing it up. Because she didn't want to give him any false hopes. But seeing everything that had happened, she understood that there was no point in hiding it anymore. Pursing her lips, she finally spoke. Hey. Regarding the mirror. Don't worry about it. Julian waved his hand, cutting her off. I already resolved the problem. I don't really need it anymore. But I'm more worried about Aoife. Julian promptly cut her off again, bringing up a completely different topic. Kira tried to argue again, but Julian spoke before she could get her point out. You, of all people, should know how Aoife is. If we tell her that the guards she sent to help us were actually spies from another organization, there's no doubt she'd try something. I feel like that might be problematic. Kira blinked her eyes, her mind drifting towards Aoife. He had a point. But wouldn't that be a good thing? Would it be? Julian slowly turned his head to look at her. If the organization is capable of planting spies within the Megrail family itself, do you really think it would be wise to tell her about the situation? Kira had a sudden look of understanding. She hadn't put much thought into the situation. There were too many things for her to think about than this. In that sense, it was a good thing that she hadn't talked to Aoife yet. But still, don't you think that she might have people that she could tell? Even if she does, it would still make her a target. I'm sure that whatever this organization is, they must have eyes everywhere. Exposing this to Aoife would only bring about more danger. Then should we just ignore it? For now, yes. Kira's brows knitted tightly, clearly not fully on board with his words, but it didn't seem like Julian cared much about her opinion or how she felt. You've seen what they're capable of. If even your aunt was enslaved by them and nearly taken out by a mere squad, you should understand just how powerful they truly are. For now, the best decision would be to do nothing and just get stronger. Julian paused, his eyes staring straight at her. Just like now. You've gotten a lot stronger. I did. Didn't we beat a few high ranks? Yes, but... No, but... We did it. Julian stood up from the bench, casually yawning while mumbling something like, I should probably get some sleep. Didn't get enough sleep? Squinting his eyes, Julian looked at the distant forest before turning away. It's true that you wouldn't have been able to defeat it without my help or your aunt's, but it's also undeniable that neither of us could have one without you. That new power of yours. Julian paused, giving her a quick look before heading away. It's pretty impressive. If you hadn't been so scared of your own powers, you probably could have been the Black Star at the start of the year. Not that it matters now, I'm ahead of you anyway. Ha! What sort of nonsense? It's true. I'm a lot stronger than you. That but... Kira felt her lip twitch. Was he flaunting his strength? I'll keep investigating the organization. In your current state, if you try to do the same, you'll probably just be a burden. If you really want to continue, then at least try to keep up with me. Otherwise... Julian didn't finish his words, but the meaning was clear. Kira's nose scrunched up as she watched him slowly walk away, his steps and back carefree. It was only after he disappeared from sight that Kira lowered her head, staring at her hands. As she did, her crimson eyes flickered faintly and a dark film began to creep slowly over her arms. Clenching and unclenching her fists, she watched as the dark film gradually faded away. With a quiet sigh, she leaned back against the bench once more. You think I don't know? Staring at the clear blue sky above, Kira felt a cool breeze brush past her. Swoosh! As her platinum hair swayed in the breeze, she thought about the date and closed her eyes, letting the cool air wash over her. Spring. Maybe I'm starting to get why you liked it so much. It's not so bad. The next few days passed by in a blur. After the interrogation, several high-ranked inquisitors were dispatched to investigate the premises. During those days, we were confined to the estate. Their initial intention was to keep us there longer, but that simply wasn't an option. With Amel present and the same being true for Caius, the inquisitors had no choice but to release us without much delay. Aoife also played a big part in that. All in all, we still managed to make it back to the academy in time. It's only been a week and yet it feels like I've been gone for over a month. I hope that we won't have to go out anymore. Arriving at the academy entrance, Evelyn dropped her bag to the ground and took a deep breath. Judging by her expression, she looked extremely glad to be back. It's not like you did anything during the time we were in Kira's place. In fact, Kira and I were the only ones who suffered in those times. Just thinking about it made me depressed. At least I've managed to resolve one big issue and acquire the mirror. One could argue that the trip wasn't fruitless. Not only did I acquire the mirror, but I also managed to resolve one of my biggest problems. With the danger of Julian seizing control of this body no longer looming, I could finally focus entirely on my quests and training. Well, hopefully. Up until now, I never actually managed to get enough time to just purely focus on training. No, that's not quite right. I did get a chance back at the Ivinus estate, but that was about it. There were still many things I needed to focus on, like my emotive control. I had neglected my training in that area for too long, and it was in serious need of refinement. I still had the cube with me and used it quite often to train, but there was still a lot to be desired. When I have some time, I should get in touch with Professor Heavenheart. It had been a while since I had last talked to her. Oh, look! The academy finally looks like it's back to how it used to be. As Evelyn had pointed out, the academy was indeed different from how we had last left it. The facilities were no longer in ruins and the once missing greenery had been fully restored to its former state. Cadets appeared all around the premises, walking and talking as though nothing had previously happened. In general, the vibe of the academy looked to be the same as it once was when I first entered. It was a refreshing sight to some extent. But, for how long will I be able to enjoy the sight? I hoped it would last at least a week or two. Yes, that would be enough. I knew that soon enough, a quest would come either pulling me away from the academy again or demanding a major part of my attention. By then, I wouldn't be able to focus on relaxing and training. I would once again be thrust into a situation where I'd have to rack my brain over and over in an attempt to figure out the meaning behind whatever vision I was going to experience. Just the thought made my head ache. However, that very thought made me want to cherish the little time I had left before something inevitably happened. With that in mind, I excused myself from the others and made my way to my room. The first thing I did upon arriving at my room was lie on the bed and close my eyes. For now, I'll get some sleep. Classes should start in 2 days, so I have time to rest. In the meantime, I should rest and prepare for the inevitable quest that is going to come. I was both excited and annoyed. Excited by the prospect of growing stronger again, but annoyed at the fact that I wouldn't have any time for myself. Well, it's not like I have to follow the quests. I wasn't exactly being forced into completing them. I could neglect them if I wanted, but the reward was too good to give up on. Not only that, but the consequences of failing the quest were something I didn't even want to consider, even though I wasn't entirely sure what they did. By now, my life was tied with the quests. This was especially so after realizing that I had now completed 73% of the game progression. I was now only 27% away from reaching the end. I wonder what will happen when that happens. Would I be able to find out where Noelle is, or will something else happen? I wasn't sure, but I was going to find out soon enough. Yeah, soon. Taking a deep breath, I slowly sank into my sleep. At that moment, I prepared to get as much rest as possible before the inevitable quest arrived. However, that quest never came. Even as 6 months passed, a new quest never arrived. By the end of the year, a lot of things had changed. I managed to reach the 6th tier before anyone else, becoming the Black Star once again. I also managed to refine my control over my emotive magic while sharpening my existing skills. And I also received a marriage proposal. Chapter 575, 6 months 2. Time passes before you know it. What seemed like just a few hours quickly stretched into days, and before anyone realized it, half a year had gone by. Half a year wasn't much, but it was enough time for a lot of change to occur. Swoosh! Dozens of threads materialized from my right arm, weaving their way across every corner of the vast training ground before me. In the distance, 4 figures stood, gazing at the invisible threads with seemingly effortless focus. For your information, you're not supposed to fight back. The figures were none other than Leon, Caius, Amel, and Kalian. I was trying to test something. So we're just supposed to take it? Leon's lips twitched in the distance as he brought his sword forward. The other 3 also got into defensive stances. Yes, pretty much. I smiled and pressed my hands together. As soon as I moved, the threads shot up into the air, and I could see the expressions of all 4 of them tighten. In normal circumstances where they could fight back properly, they wouldn't have looked so worried. But I had asked them a favor. A simple favor. That is, to be my testing dummies for a new skill I had developed over the past 6 months. It was still a work in progress, but I was getting there. Ready? I stopped and looked at the 4 of them as several dozen threads stood straight in the air. Leon looked around him and then looked back at me. You're going to pay us for this, right? Eh? I blinked my eyes in confusion. Pay? Did this guy lose his mind or something? Wait, you're not. Of course not. I pointed at Kalian, Caius, and Amel. These 3 right here probably have way more money than I have. Why would I even pay them? This was ridiculous. And it's not like this is a bad chance for you guys to test yourselves against my new skill. It's not perfect, but I'm sure you guys will learn a few things from it. Yes, but what about me? Leon said while pointing at himself. I raised my brow. What about you? I'm not rich like them. I would like to get paid. You already get paid by my family. Boo, you should be glad that I haven't fired you yet. How many times has it been since you've actually done your job? I can hardly count any. Hey, should you be really talking to him like that? With Amel suddenly cutting in, I turned to look at him as my eyes narrowed. Ah shit. I forgot these 2 are related. What disgusting genetics. For your information, he likes it when I talk to him like this. Amel suddenly looked at Leon with a shocked look as he covered his mouth. He had a face that seemed to say, I didn't know you were like that. That's... What? I Donna. Anyway, get ready. I'm about to get started. I pressed my hands together before the 2 could clear up the misunderstanding. In that instant, their expressions shifted and they all suddenly dropped into a defensive stance. A change occurred to the threads shortly after that. At the same moment, a sharp pain coursed through my head as if it were being split open, and beads of sweat began to drip down the side of my face. Clenching my fist, each thread began to split into several smaller ones, each thinner than the last. The pain grew sharper with each thinning, and my body unconsciously started to tremble. I took several deep breaths, pushing through the pain while maintaining focus on the splitting threads. It was only when each individual thread had split 5 times that I stopped, letting out a heavy gulp of air. Whack! I let go of my grip and the threads suddenly twisted together before shooting into the air. It's coming! The expressions of the 4 shifted suddenly at the sight, just as the threads shot upward, and that's when it happened. Shio! Small, needle-shaped threads shot down from above. At first, it was just 1 or 2, but soon enough. Shio, shio, shio. It started to rain. Caius was the first to move, extending his hand forward. However, his expression quickly shifted as several thin streaks of red appeared on his exposed hand. He quickly lifted his hand shortly after that, and all the threads around him paused in the air. It was only once he did so that everyone was able to witness just how many threads were surrounding them as Kalian and the rest all did their best to defend themselves against the needle-like threads. Staring at them from where I stood, I took several deep breaths as I sat down on the ground. That took a lot more stamina and mana than I expected. And looking at the 4 of them in the distance, I could see that while they were all wary of the threads, none of them looked particularly concerned. At least, not yet. What the? That was until they suddenly realized something. You cursed the threads? I smiled then as I watched the faces of the 4 pale. These were no ordinary threads. Infused with curse magic, the moment they made contact with them, or even so much as grazed them, they would get cursed. But that wasn't the best part of it all. No, the best part of it all was the fact that the effect stacked. meaning that the more they were touched by the needle-like threads, the stronger the curse would grow, becoming increasingly potent with each contact. This new type of attack was something I had developed over the past 6 months, a period during which I could fully focus on honing my abilities and training without any distractions. It was safe to say that my training had been fruitful. But of course, things were still far from perfect. Ugh. Damn it. While the 4 of them were struggling, it was mainly due to the fact that they were completely unaware of the curse placed within each thread. Otherwise, they wouldn't be struggling so much. It's good so far, but there's still a lot more to develop before I can fully use it. The Rain of Thread was lacking a few things. One was speed and the second was detectability. If one had sharp enough senses, they could detect the pin-like threads heading their way. Thankfully, the solution to this problem was easy to fix. I just need to integrate the attack with Lament of Lies. By doing this, I could make it difficult for my enemies to detect the threads. The only problem was that the attack already consumed a significant amount of mana and concentration. Adding Lament of Lies to the mix would drain me completely, leaving me with nothing. Of course, I could limit the number of threads and all that as well. There's still so much to work on. Shaking my head, I leaned back on the ground as the rain of threads eventually ceased, leaving behind 4 bodies on the ground as they all tried to suppress the effect of the curse. Don't worry, I didn't go too hard. I only injected the most basic curse into the threads. You'll feel fine in the next few minutes. My words were met with a couple of looks. I could only shrug and focus my attention on recuperating my mana. In fact, there was something else that I wanted to try. It was just unfortunate that it wasn't ready just yet. Rather than not ready, it's more like I've still yet made much progress. I slowly turned my attention towards my arm. Beyond just this attack, I had been practicing my emotive control quite a lot. As of right now, my speech had become a lot stronger than it was in the past, reaching further than before. However, it was still not enough. Touch was still a lot more powerful and potent than speech was. So long as I touched someone, I could incapacitate them. But that was easier said than done. Getting close to someone was extremely difficult, and even with Lament of Lies, it was still hard. It was during my training with my threads that I had a sudden thought. Is it possible for me to infuse my emotive magic in the threads just like curse magic? This wasn't a new concept to me. I'd thought of it before, but my control had been so poor back then that it had seemed impossible. But the same couldn't be said for the current me. And it was true. It was still a work in progress, but the progress was noticeable. I just needed a little more before I could finally reach my desired goal. But once that happened, I took a deep breath, trying my best to calm my trembling heart. Snapping out of my thoughts, I looked in the direction of the 4 of them, and seeing that they were all fine, I stood up and walked towards them. See? It wasn't that bad. The first one to catch my sight was Leon, who looked at me with a look of disgust. I looked away from him and then the others. I wasn't the only one who had grown over the past 6 months. The 4 of them had, too, and they were, in fact, catching up with me. This was especially so for Leon. Well, it can't be helped. I'm not as talented as them. The only reason why I could grow so fast was because of the quest system that granted me the ability to grow faster. Otherwise, all 4 of them were far more talented than me. Maybe not in emotive magic, but in the other aspects, yes. I wasn't all too bothered. Their growth also helped fuel my growth. Tirare. Just then, I heard my communication vibrate, and my heart almost leaped out of my chest the moment I realized it was coming from the family head. Immediately, I looked towards Leon, who raised his brow. Family head. His expression showed similar changes as he quickly stood up from the floor and neared me. I looked at the other 3, who seemed to have understood as they quietly left. It was only when the 3 of them were gone that I answered. Just what exactly could this man want from me? Hello? Yes. The family head's cold voice echoed from the communication device. I'll get straight to the point. You've received an invitation. Invitation? Yes, it's a very important one, involving several major figures from the Empire and other empires. Leon is also invited. You will be heading there as a delegate for the Ivinus household. Oh. I will send you the details soon. Make sure you attend. The communication ended there. I frowned and glanced at Leon, who was doing the same, his gaze meeting mine. What just happened? If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions. Just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.